What happened in Venezuela? Very strongly. It doesn't look like what we used to call so-called velvet, color, sandpaper, or any other kind of revolutions. This is a very important point because there's a funny analogy here with hard to be a god. That is, it's the eternal question. Can you come from another planet and stage a successful revolution? In the country of Don Reba. And so the answer, as the Strugatskys would say, and the normal answer from everyone was no. Because after all, the point isn't Don Reba, but those black ones who always come after the gray ones. But the answer given by the Levo Democratic administration, let's say the USA and Europe after the collapse of the USSR, and largely in the euphoria following the collapse of the USSR, had the opposite answer. Yes. That is, we can administer injections of democracy. And this was the main point, not in removing this or that leader. The point was that there were policies for artificially democratizing the planet. And all of this was called the Washington Consensus. And all the measures that were taken, including coups, were within this Washington Consensus, as part of a larger plan to impose Western values. What is the difference in Trump's policy? I mean, well, he does steal leaders, of course, but when it comes to values, as they say, apart from petrodollars, there's nothing else. Yeah, go ahead and eat each other if you want, but you must be loyal to the United States of America. That's the fundamental difference. So what's happening in Venezuela? In other words, they removed the person who was obviously standing in the way of change. But what kind of change? Revolutionary or evolutionary within their own club. It suddenly turns out to be evolutionary within their own club. So it turns out that his rival faction within the party itself, which is actually the truly hardcore Chavistas, because Maduro is a nobody, that's a fact. An upstart former bus driver. But these guys, the brother and sister who have now come to power, it's like if Lenin's grandchildren started ruling Russia, you see. So these guys turned out to be much more flexible and cautious than he was. That's where the real paradox lies. And it turns out that paradoxically, no matter how you feel about Trump, this is a more subtle approach. That is, instead of imposing an impossible democracy that actually has no roots there, they are taking targeted action, so to speak, to remove obstacles. They cut off one branch from the tree that naturally grows there and give another branch the opportunity to grow, which is simply, well, at least for the moment, more acceptable to them.